Unveiling Strong Delusion, Video 29, Milcah, the Mother of Rebecca, Part 2, Cadmus, the Dragon Slayer. Cadmus, the long version. This video will tell the tale of Cadmus and the dragon or serpent in a roundabout way. It will travel to North America, link the tale to Jesuits and important American figures, link the tale to Italy, link the tale to Spain, and link the tale to British kings. It will step out of the box of the normal tale of Cadmus. Cadmus and the Dragon. The story of Cadmus, the Dragon Slayer, forms the starting point of many important Greek myths or histories, including Oedipus the King or Oedipus Rex. Many modern ideas and beliefs start with Cadmus. We will see important segments of European royalty descend from Cadmus. We will see that Cadmus the Phoenician links to the genealogy in Genesis 11 and to Terah and Abraham. The box and the strong delusion. Scholars live in their own boxes or compartments. Few historians have deep knowledge of the Bible, and most Bible scholars know little history. History tells the same stories over and over, supposedly separated by thousands of years and great distances. The tale of a man slaying a dragon or majestic serpent permeates all cultures from India to Scandinavia and from China to America. Yet today only children believe in dragons, while educated adults believe in dinosaurs, rockets, infinite space, and ancient history. Education and the strong delusion. School children, like puppies, first learn to sit quietly. Schools teach obedience and credulity to all children. Schools fill children with prepared knowledge, but do not teach children to think outside the box. Children learn to believe and trust their teachers, who learn to do the same in their own puppy training schools. The smarter or better trained children go on to college where they get further training. Scholars take pride in the knowledge in their own boxes and gain advancement and prestige by decorating their boxes. Believers tell the best lies. We all have learned lies and have learned to believe them. Most teachers and professors believe what they have memorized and teach these lies with all sincerity. Few will dare to lift the lid of the box and seek truth because their colleagues in their box will ridicule and abandon them. We all have learned to stick to the group and to ridicule those who stand outside. Quote, "The best slave is the one who thinks he is free." End of quote. Johann von Goethe. Biblical and classical scholars. Biblical scholars have set fixed dates for events, which scholars may challenge only within narrow parameters. The same applies to classical scholars who give us dates for Homer, Plato, Aristotle, etc., which they memorized in training school. No one questions how the ancient Greeks could have written vast volumes without paper in a land that has no resources to produce paper and no history of paper making. No one questions how the Bible could call the tiny desert Israel of today the land of milk and honey, or how major events could have occurred in that tiny land. Parallel Greek and Hebrew history. Greek and Hebrew history and literature have many parallels. Quote, "In retrospect, it seems strange that so many generations of Old Testament scholars, trained in Greek as well as Hebrew literature, have managed to keep their Greek and Hebrew studies rigidly compartmentalized. Nothing could bring out more clearly the fact that we absorb attitudes as well as subject matter in the learning process. Moreover, the attitudes tend to determine what we see and what we fail to see in the subject matter." Cyrus H. Gordon, The Common Background of Greek and Hebrew Civilizations, pages 11 and 12. The same applies to Greek and Egyptian history and Roman history. We will see in a later video that two famous Romans play the same roles as Moses and Joshua in the Old Testament. Cadmus, the Phoenician or Venetian. Historians give us mixed lineages for Cadmus or Cadmus. According to one legend, the Olympian sea god Poseidon begat Agenor and his twin brother Belus with Libya, the daughter of the king of Egypt. Belus became the king of Egypt, and Agenor became the king of Phoenicia. Some sources say King Agenor of Phoenicia had 3 sons, Phoenix, Cadmus, and Cilix, and a daughter, Europa. The confused lineage of Cadmus. Other sources say Phoenix fathered Cadmus, Cilix, and Europa. In Homer's The Iliad, Zeus calls Europa the daughter of Phoenix. Quote, "Not when I stormed Europa, far-famed Phoenix's daughter, who bore me Minos and Rhadamanthus, grandest gods." Iliad, Book 14, lines 385 to 386. Since Homer bears a close relations to St. Omer colleges and the Jesuits, this video will go with Phoenix, as the father of Cadmus, Cilix, and Europa. The Romans associated Phoenix with Phoenicia. The Phoenix, worm, and resurrection. The church father, Clement of Rome, wrote that when the phoenix died, a worm would grow out of its decomposing body and then sprout wings and become a new phoenix. A worm or worm can refer to a dragon or snake. Clement compared the phoenix to the resurrection of Christ. Psalm 22 and Matthew 27. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:46, and it has a parallel version or text in Mark 15:34. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? Psalm 22:1. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and feet. Psalm 22:16. Worm and scarlet stuff. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised of the people. Psalm 22:6. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. Matthew 27:28. The word worm in Hebrew can refer to scarlet stuff. Strong's Hebrew 8438 defines the Hebrew word tola to mean worm, scarlet stuff, crimson. Wordplay, unseen unless one reads the verses in different languages. Casting lots in Psalm 22 and Matthew 27. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. Psalm 22:18. And they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. Matthew 27:35. They cast lots upon his vesture in both. Strong delusion and confusion of books. Part of the strong delusion comes from the confusion and shuffling of the order of the books of the Bible and other ancient books and documents. The quotes from Psalm 22 and Matthew 27 show they tell an identical story, but scholars tell us King David and others wrote the Psalms over 900 years before the New Testament. Some modern biblical apologists explain the problem by calling Psalm 22 a prophecy of the crucifixion. More logically, the Old and New Testaments occurred at approximately the same time. Chapters and verses. The division of the Bible into chapters with numbered verses did not occur into the so-called 12th or 13th centuries, which may get duplicated in the 16th to 17th centuries. Numbers, or gematria, play a large role in the strong delusion and the control system. Scholars and laypersons have learned to accept the set order and chronology of the books of the Bible. Neither historians nor biblical scholars will accept deviation from the set order. Strong delusion and confusion of books. We have learned, like puppies, to believe what our masters taught us. We have learned to accept the books in the order given to us. Many parallel texts exist between and among separate books of the Bible that most religious scholars would deny or decry. For example, One could argue from word meanings that the descendants of Noah attacked Job and his family. Scholars call Job the oldest book in the Bible, but Noah may have preceded him. The phoenix in Job. Much of the strong delusions comes because of our lack of knowledge of the real meaning of words in Hebrew and other languages. For example, most versions of the Bible translate Job 29:18 more or less like this. Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. King James versions. And the word sand comes from Strong's Hebrew 23:44, kol, or kol. The Jewish Publication Society Tanakh, or Bible, the Torah, prophets, and writings, translates the same verse. I thought I would end my days with my family, literally nest, and be as long-lived as the phoenix. Now, the combination of nest makes more sense with the phoenix than with the sand. And if you look at online Strong's Concordance, Hebrew Concordance, you have to search hard to find the word phoenix in it, and you can find that in the Bible Hub webpage. Phoenix, eagle, and androgyne. Both Herodotus and Pliny noted the general resemblance in shape between the phoenix and the eagle, a point which the reader should carefully consider, for it is reasonably certain that the modern Masonic eagle was originally a phoenix. End of quote. Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which you can get for free online. Quote, here again, only the student of symbolism can see through the subterfuge and realize that the American eagle upon the Great Seal is but a conventionalized phoenix, a fact plainly discernible from an examination of the original seal. End of quotes. And Manly P. Hall in this PDF copy has a very small picture of the Phoenix version of the seal, but I could not make it big enough to put on a video. Quote, the double-headed phoenix is the prototype of an androgynous man, for according to the secret teachings, there will come a time when the human body will have two spinal cords by means of which vibratory equilibrium will be maintained in the body. Now, Plato, in his dialogues such as the Symposium, writes about this and describes originally mankind composing of two bodies conjoined like Siamese twins with 4 legs and four arms and 2 heads, etc. And on the fall of man that they were separated. And Fomenko, Anatoly Fomenko, puts Plato in about the 14th century. And I think that might have some accuracy to it, but I also think the 14th century might also get duplicated in later centuries. The phoenix and the double-headed eagle, and you can see this type of double-headed eagle in heraldry across Europe. This one comes from a Russian double-headed eagle. The phoenix and Aristotle. Aristotle, the favorite philosopher of the Venetian oligarchy of the 13th century to today, wrote the phoenix could rise from its ashes. Francesco Petrarch, 1304 to 1374, the son of Dante's personal secretary and a Platonist, mocked Aristotle and wrote a polemic against the Venetians and their love of Aristotle titled De sui ipsius et multorum ignorantia, which may actually be a joke on a title by Aristotle. Petrarch called Aristotle more ignorant than an old peasant woman. Petrarch invented the concept of the Dark Ages, which probably did not exist. Petrarch rediscovered Cicero's letters. Another Platonist writer, Plutarch, supposedly 46 to 120 AD, has a very similar name. Venetian oligarchy. The Venetian oligarchy, descendants of Abraham and Terah, lives on to this day and rules much of the world through banking. For centuries, they have lived as parasites on humanity, those who neither reap nor sow, but live through exploitation of the many. For centuries, they have lived through banking and control of trade, including slavery. They fomented many, if not all, of the religious wars in Europe. They promoted Martin Luther and John Calvin, as well as leading the Catholic Counter-Reformation, playing both sides of the dialectic. Phoenicia in Lebanon or Italy? Today, historians put Tyre and Phoenicia in Lebanon. Italy has the Tyrrhenian Sea on its west coast and the Venice on its northeast coast. I think Tyre and the Phoenicians or Venetians come from Italy. And many scholars say that the Phoenicians became the Venetians, but they have no explanation of how more than 1,000 years or 2,000 years could pass between the Phoenicians becoming the Venetians. A future video will identify Abraham as an important Venetian king in his secular role. And here we have the Tyrrhenian Sea, here on the west coast of Italy, and Venice up here north of Ravenna. We saw Ravenna before, the city of the ravens, Bran the Blessed. Zeus and Europa. Back to the story. Zeus saw Europa and other maidens in a field of flowers. He changed himself into a white bull and lay down before Europa. Europa climbed on the bull's back. The bull charged into the sea with Europa and swam to Crete, or so-called Crete. And here we have a picture of Europa riding side saddle on the bull, just like Italian women to this day ride side saddle on motor scooters. Zeus takes Europa to Crete, or Egypt. The next name, quote, the next name appropriated to this island was Air, i.e. Ireland, so called from the word area, a name by which formerly Crete, now Candia, was called. Egypt, from whence the Galileans came, was called by that name, and the same author is of opinion that the Isle of Crete was called Area because the Galileans remained there, and after the time when Shrew, the son of Esru, with all the Galileans were banished out of Egypt. Keating's General History of Ireland. Galileans and Gadriel the serpent. Keating says the Galileans came from Egypt. The Book of Enoch describes Gadriel as one of the chiefs of the fallen watchers and the serpent who deceived Eve. Quote, and the third was named Gadriel. He it is who showed the children of men all the blows of death, and he led astray Eve, and showed the shield, and the coat of mail, and the sword for battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men. And from his hand they have proceeded against those who dwell on the earth from that day and forevermore. Book of Enoch 64, 6-7. Now, this version of the fall of man in the Garden of Eden says that the snake who deceived Eve then and there showed them the shield and the coat of mail and the sword, meaning that war and weaponry started right after the fall, not many thousands of years later. God and God sound much the same in English. Questioning the Book of Enoch, or not. The first traces of the long-lost Book of Enoch occurred when Josephus Justus Scaliger, 1540 to 1609, discovered extensive tracts of it in an unpublished book called Chronographia by a 9th century monk, George Sincelius. Now, scholars write this type of stuff all the time, but no one questions how a book from the 9th century could survive into the 16th or 17th century, depending when scholars supposedly read this. Today, if you try to check out an old book out of the library, they won't even let you check it out because they all will fall apart on you. History tells us that in the 18th century, James Bruce of Kinnaird, Scotland, a descendant of King Robert the Bruce, went to Ethiopia and brought back 3 copies of the Book of Enoch. Bruce gave 1 copy to King Louis XV, 1 to the Bodleian Library at Oxford, and kept 1 for himself. Again, here we have the upper classes giving us or planting information on us. Just as after Israel became Israel, they've discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, or how in the 20th century people just happened on the Nag Hammadi scriptures. I'm not saying these are false. I'm just saying that it seems that people plant things on us. Scaliger, Aquitaine, Basques, and Jesuits. Scaliger grew up in Agen, France, the prefecture of the capital of the Lot and Huron department in the Aquitaine region, which got its name from Lot and his father Huron. He went to the College of Guyenne in Bordeaux, and Guyenne is an Occitan way of saying Aquitaine, and so it's the College of Aquitaine in Bordeaux. And Bordeaux is the largest city in Aquitaine. This connects him to Terah, Abraham, Lot, and Eleanor of Aquitaine, and the Plantagenous kings of England, who we will see shortly. Video 6 on Ur showed that Terah and his family probably sailed from Ireland to Bordeaux in Aquitaine. The Basque once ruled Aquitaine, and the Basque founded the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits. We saw that in the video, I think it was 24, in Machpelah, where Abraham purchased a sepulcher for Sarah from the brothers of Het, who became the Jesuits in that version in the 13th century, but the Jesuits became the Jesuits in the 16th century, and I think that's one of the reasons I think the 13th and the 16th century get duplicated. Scaliger and Jacob. Video 26 connected Jacob with Jacopino della Scala, or of the latter, and the leaders of Verona, Italy, also Venetians. Scaliger claimed to descend from the Della Scala family. The Jesuits attacked him ferociously for this claim. Video 24 in Machpelah and the Hittites connected Abraham, the grandfather of Jacob, to the founding of the Jesuit order. The Phoenicians or Venetians have a strong connection to the Jesuits. Quote, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." End of quote. Marmion, Sir Walter Scott. Another interesting name. Cadmus' quest to find Europa. Legends tell us that the father of Cadmus, whether Phoenix or Agenor, commanded his sons to find their sister. We will return to the quest after a brief detour. Children of Zeus and Europa. Zeus and Europa had 2 or 3 sons. The Iliad lists 2, Minos and Rhadamanthus. Minos became the first king of Crete or Egypt according to Keating. The name Minos has the same consonants as Menes, the pharaoh of Egypt who created the so-called First Dynasty. Minos banished his 2 brothers, Rhadamanthus and Sarpedon. The Iliad does not list Sarpedon as the son of Zeus and Europa, but rather of Zeus and Laodamia. Minos, Montana, the Blackfeet, and Jesuits. In an earlier video on Ur, we went to Montana, and I said I would expand on this in a later video, and now the expansion comes. The Blackfeet Indians today live in Montana. The Greeks called the Egyptians the Blackfeet or Melampodes. Historians tell us Jesuit missionaries established several missions among the Blackfeet in the 19th century. And here we have Montana in the northern United States, and you can see a face drawn in the western boundary of Montana. Minos, the son of Zeus, and Europa from Michelangelo's Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, the serpent devouring his genitals to unman him. The serpent and the androgyne have a close connection. And here we compare the face in Montana to Minos' face. Montana even has white snow to match Minos' white hair. The Jesuits established a mission in Stevensville, Montana, on the bridge of Minos' nose, right here. Stephen means wreath or crown, like the wreath that surrounds the plane in the UN flag or logo. The Jesuits established a mission in St. Ignatius, Montana, right near Minos' eye, right here. The St. Ignatius Catholic Church, a very nice church for a town with a population of 842 in 2010. Of course, we have no idea of the population when they made this church. The inside of the St. Ignatius Church, with 58 murals, all painted by a brother Joseph Carignano. Now, I couldn't find much information about Joseph Carignano, but the name Carignano comes from the Duchy of Savoy, and it was the name of one of the ruling families of the Duchy of Savoy, which today, even today, plays a large role in the Italian hierarchy. The Diocese of Helena, the capital of Montana in the face of Minos. Now, let's take a look at some of the towns in the diocese. Here we have Hamilton, named after the leading royal family of Scotland. Today, the Douglas Hamiltons. Now, Jungle Surfer has made many videos on the Hamilton name. We also have Philipsburg, which can represent Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch from the New Testament, or could represent the father of Alexander the Great. We also have Florence, with the city in the midst of the river Arnon. And Drummond. Jungle Surfer has also made a number of videos on the Drummond name. Down here we have Derby. Derby is after Colonel William Derby of Derby's Rangers, and Camp Derby in Italy, near where Moses died. And over here to the east, this town remains on the map, although it only has 42 people according to Wikipedia. And they say it comes, this name Shawmut comes from an Indian name, an Eastern Coast Indian name. But if you look at it, you can see it actually has two Hebrew names in it. Shaw, which is the pronunciation of the Hebrew words that we normally spell Shoah, S-H-O-A, and that comes from Strong's Hebrew 7722, which means the Holocaust, or the burnt offering, or, you know, the Holocaust that supposedly Hitler slaughtered Jews in World War II. And the second word, mut, means death in Hebrew. And that comes from Strong's Hebrew 4193. So death by Holocaust. And also down here, we have Lima, as in Lima, Peru. And if you apply the rule of reversal to Peru, you get Europe. Pierre-Jean de Smet. Pierre-Jean de Smet, 1801 to 1873, a Jesuit from Belgium, established the St. Mary's Mission in Stevensville. He studied for his priesthood in Baltimore, Maryland. We will see major connections between Belgium, Baltimore, and the Jesuits shortly. Carroll College, Helena, Montana. The first mention of the name Carroll in this video, but we will hear many more. This college takes its name after John Carroll, the first Archbishop of Baltimore and the first Archbishop in the United States of America, who we will see shortly. Thanks to GreenlandTheory.com for this Minos and Montana insight. Cadmus and the Oracle at Delphi. During his quest to find Europa, Cadmus arrived at Delphi, where he consulted the oracle Pythia. Legends tell us that in earlier times the god Apollo had slain Python, a Draco or giant serpent or dragon who lived in Delphi. The serpent plays a large role in the legend of Cadmus and in Native American history, as we will see. John Bathurst Dean shows that every major culture in the world worshipped the serpent in the past and considered them wise. Now, we no longer have this connection between wisdom and the serpent, except for more or less in the biblical context. That's from the worship of the serpent, which you can find online for free. The location of Delphi. Today, scholars identify a small town in upper central Greece as Delphi. Much of the strong delusion relies on placing historical events, cities, and countries in the wrong locations and times. Occultists often speak of the law or rule of reversal. Applying this rule, the new world becomes the old world, and the old world the new world. Rather than ancient history, we have only relatively recent history. Rather than a massive sun that dwarfs the earth, we have a small sun dwarfed by the earth. Rather than uninhabitable planets millions of miles from the earth, we have habitable planets close to the earth, within striking distance. Greek and Egyptian place names. This series of videos will try to show that Greek and Egyptian myths and history occurred in North America. The videos will show Greek and Egyptian place names in all the right relative locations and geographical order to fit the myths and history. The videos will show that America has many Egyptian place names allegedly founded during the times before the advent of modern Egyptology. Modern Egyptology began around 1820 after the 1798 to 1801 invasion of Egypt by Napoleon and of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, and in reality much of modern Egyptology occurred after the year 1900. Delphi, Indiana. The Ministry of Truth tells us Delphi is a city in the county seat of Carroll County in the U.S. state of Indiana. Located 20 minutes northeast of Lafayette, it is part of the Lafayette, Indiana Metropolitan Statistical Area. Carroll County, as in Carroll College and Helena, Montana. Truth goes on to tell us Delphi was platted in 1828. It took its name from the ancient city of Delphi in Greece. 1828, a year during the Great Deception era. And here we have Delphi, Indiana, south, almost directly south of Chicago, and southwest of Lake Erie, a very important lake in the Deception and for names. The Wabash and Erie Canal. The longest canal ever built in the U.S. runs from Toledo, Ohio on Lake Erie to Evanston, Indiana on the Ohio River. Its route goes through Delphi and Terre Haute, as in the Hauteville or Altavilla family. Mini-True tells us Congress appropriated money in 1827 and the states of Ohio and Indiana built it by 1853, without heavy equipment to dig it or to move dirt. Carroll County Courthouse in Delphi. Carroll and the Strong Delusion. The name Carroll, as in Carroll County, Indiana, and Carroll College in Helena, plays a large role in the Strong Delusion. Video 11 on Chedorlaomer discussed the Jesuit colleges of St. Omer. Some central figures in the United States history received their educations at St. Omer. Charles Carroll of Carrollton, or Charles Carroll III, cousin of John and Daniel Carroll, and the sole Catholic signer of the Declaration of Independence. Charles Carroll owns vast estates, about 1,000 slaves, and had more wealth than any other person in the colonies before the Revolution. Carroll County, Indiana, took its name from Charles Carroll III. John Carroll of Baltimore, the first bishop and archbishop in the United States. John Carroll founded Georgetown University, the oldest Catholic and Jesuit university in the U.S. Carroll College in Helena gets its name from him. Daniel Carroll, the older brother of John Carroll and one of the only 5 men to sign both the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. He and John grew up on Darnell's Chance, a 27,000-acre estate his mother, Eleanor Darnell Carroll, inherited from her grandfather. Daniel Carroll owned the land that became Washington, D.C. Darnell's Chance. Eleanor Darnell Carroll, 1703 to 1796, received her education from Sepulcrene nuns in Liège, today in Belgium, the location of the Jesuit College of St. Omer. William Darrell, no N, served as superior of St. Omer College from 1720 to 1721. John Darrell, no N, served as a rector of St. Omer College from 1752 to 1759. In Aramaic, Dar means a generation, Strong's Hebrew 1859, 1755. Generation of El. If we look at this very interesting picture, we'll see some interesting things. Here we have a vase of flowers and a flower. And the flower symbolically represents the neophyte and the burnt offering. And the neophyte means newly planted and refers to secret societies. And here we also see a checkered floor, which either indicates the Darnell Carroll family played a lot of chess or belonged to the Freemasons. And here we have a god face, and I do not recognize the face of this either Greek or Roman figure. Canoness regular of the Holy Sepulchre, or Sepulchrean nuns, who taught Eleanor Darnell Carroll. History tells us Helena, the mother of Constantine the Great and the name of the capital of Montana, received her religious habit of a canoness from the Bishop of Jerusalem. Minitrue tells us, quote, the earliest historical date on record is 1300, the year in which the monastery was founded in the province of Teruel by Marquise Doña Gil de Rada. In 1306, the community was incorporated as part of the female branch of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, a military order founded in Jerusalem. Now, this Doña Gil de Rada is an interesting name. The name Gil can refer to the androgyne. And here, Minitrue, as perhaps a slip of the tongue, refers to her as Marquise, where in English, the female Marquise is a Marquess, and in Spanish, a Marquesa. And de Rada is an interesting name because it's a very common name in Czechoslovakia, or today the Czech Republic, which we have seen before has a connection to Provence, France, and the Hakme Provence, or the wise men and women of Provence. Teruel, a city in the autonomous region of Aragon, right here on this Google map, and the capital of the Teruel province lies southwest of Barcelona or Jerusalem, as we saw in video 10. And here we have the location of Aragon to the west of Catalonia, both just south of France. The Sepulchre of Sarah. Video 24 placed the Sepulchre of Sarah in the small Spanish town of Malpica de Arba, in the church of Nuestra Señora del Diasol. Malpica de Arba lies north of Teruel and south of the autonomous community of Navarre. Doña Gil de Rada came from Navarre, the daughter of King Teobaldo II. Canonesses regular of the Holy Sepulchre of Abraham and Sarah, founded in a location very close to the sepulchre. And here we have the location of Navarre, right near today's Basque country, and just to the west of Aragon. And most of this region used to be controlled by the Basque. Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor Darnell Carroll has the same name as Eleanor of Aquitaine, a central figure in French and English history. Eleanor, the Duchess of Aquitaine, 1122 to 1204, married King Louis VII of France and later married King Henry II of England, the first Plantagenet king. Eleanor had 5 sons and 3 daughters with Henry II. 3 of Eleanor's sons became kings of England: Henry, Richard the Lionheart, and John. Eleanor lived at the same time as Abraham ben David of Poitiers, or the biblical Abraham, 1125 to 1198. Now, the name Aquitaine, the Minitrue tells us it probably comes from the Latin word aqua, for waters, but more likely, I think, it comes from the word for eagle, aquila, and we saw the eagle and the phoenix in the link to the androgyne earlier in this video. Aquitaine includes the department of Lot-et-Garonne, which we can see right here. Aquitaine's in this purple down here, and the Lot-et-Garonne is right here. The Garonne River, which this map does not have, but it runs from the estuary of the Garonne down to the Hautes-Pyrénées, and the Gironde estuary leading to the Atlantic, which is this big estuary, very big estuary right here. Video 6 on Ur and video 7 on the journey to Haran showed that Terra and his family probably landed near Bordeaux, just right here, through the Gironde estuary. Lot and Haran departments gets his name from Lot and his father Haran, the brother of Abraham. More likely than not, the Venetian family of Abraham knew the Plantagenets. Almost certainly, because the Venetians have a super close connection to the Plantagenets. Plantagenets, planted gene. The Plantagenet kings ruled England and large parts of France. They ruled England from Henry II in 1154 until the fall of the House of Lancaster to the Tudors in 1485. And we saw that they had the rose symbol of the neophyte, or the burnt offering. Minitrue tells us, quote, originally a sobriquet of Geoffrey of Anjou, 1113 to 1151, the founder of the line, who was said to have worn a broom blossom in his hat, plante geneste in Old French, from Latin genesta, which was subsequently adopted as a surname. I think Plantagenet derives from Cadmus and the Spartoi, or planted men, who we will see shortly. Eleanor, the Basque, and the Jesuits. The Basques once ruled Aquitaine and called it Guiana or Guienne. Eleanor of Aquitaine may have come from the Basques. Dona Gilda Rada, the founder of the Sepulchrine Nuns Monastery in Teruel, came from Navarre, a region today right next to today's Basque country. Video 24 showed that in the 13th century, Abraham had a covenant, or berit, with the sons of Het, the beginnings of the Jesuits. Two Basques, Ignatius of Loyola and Francis Xavier, founded the Jesuits in the 16th century and might duplicate the 13th century. Now, Ignatius of Loyola has a very close to the Venetians, who acted basically as his protector. And the name Guiana or Guienne we see in 3 countries in East South America, the British and French and the Dutch Guianas. And we also see many Basque names in various parts of South America. For instance, Bolivar, the liberator of South America, that comes from the Basque, that name. And Venezuela and Colombia both have departments called Bolivar. And the Department of Antioquia in Colombia, historians tell us Basque founded that. We also have Basque names in Ecuador, such as Guayaquil, which I think is a Basque name also. So the Basques really spread out. They were a seafaring group, and today they're a very secretive country in Europe with a unique language that very few people can speak. Baltimore Fats and the Carrolls. The Baltimore Fats YouTube channel has made a number of videos on the Carroll family and the falsification of U.S. history. He connects them to the Calverts and Lord Baltimore. Back to Cadmus at Delphi. The oracle at Delphi told Cadmus to give up his quest to find his sister Europa. The oracle told Cadmus to follow a cow with a half moon on its side until it drops from exhaustion. The oracle told Cadmus to build a city on the spot where the cow collapsed. The cow collapsed in Boeotia. Cadmus followed the cow until it collapsed in Boeotia. Boeotia has no meaning or etymology in Greek. Minitrue tells us, quote, the origin of the name Boeotians may lie in the mountain Boan in Epirus, end of quote. Bo in Celtic means a female cow. Etymologists tell us the English word bovine comes from the late Latin bovinus and from the 14th century French bovin. Cow sacrifice and the dragon. Intending to sacrifice the cow to Athena, Cadmus sent his men to get water from a nearby spring. Unknown to Cadmus, the spring belonged to Ares, and the Ismenian dragon, or serpent, Drakon Ismenios, guarded the spring. The dragon killed the men. Cadmus then slew the dragon. The Jews would ritually sacrifice a red heifer to purify men who touched the dead, a direct parallel with the Cadmus story. 2 followers of Cadmus devoured by a dragon, Cornelius von Harlem, 1562 to 1638. And here we have a very European-style looking dragon, the way we imagine it in our video games and movies today. Cadmus slew the dragon, and in this picture, the dragon looks like a serpent, which in Greek, drakon can mean a serpent as well as a dragon. And Cadmus slays the dragon, Heinrich Goltzius, 1558 to 1617. And here we have a very oriental-looking type of dragon with 3 heads. So the dragon's teeth. Athena commanded Cadmus to sow half of the dragon's teeth in the ground. Fighting men called the Spartai, or sprouted men, grew from the dragon's teeth. The Spartai fought among themselves until only 5 remained: Echion, Udeus, Cnoctius, Hyperenor, and Pelorus. These 5 Spartai helped Cadmus build the city of Thebes. They and their descendants became the aristocracy and royalty of Thebes. Pallas Athene commanding Cadmus to sow the teeth. And here again we have a dragon who looks like a snake, and right behind Athena you can see a small owl who always accompanied Athena, or Minerva in the Latin version of the gods. Athena and Cadmus and the Spartai killing each other from the workshop of Peter Paul Rubens. Rubens, or Reuben, may mean son of the dragon, as we shall see. Thebes, Illinois. Thebes, Illinois lies 127 miles or 204 kilometers south of St. Louis. It lies 23 miles or 37 kilometers north of Cairo, Illinois. Minitrue tells us, quote, Thebes was established in 1835. At first it was known as Sparhawk Landing. It was the county seat of Alexander County, as in Alexander the Great, from 1846 until 1859. Thebes, like the city of Cairo, also in Alexander County, is named after the Egyptian city of the same name. This part of southern Illinois is known as Little Egypt. Abraham Lincoln practiced law in Thebes, or so they tell us. Thebes, Illinois lies 348 miles or 568 kilometers, 60 kilometers from Delphi, a long enough distance for a cow to collapse from exhaustion. Missouri and Egypt. Cairo and Thebes lie across the Mississippi River from Missouri. People in Missouri pronounce the word multiple ways today. Some say Missouri and some say Missouri. Some say the same in the same sentence, saying both of them in the same sentence. Old people from Missouri often allied Missouri into Mizra. Television has gone a long way to homogenizing dialects in the United States, and eventually the Mizra pronunciation will die out. Mizra and Egypt. Strong's Hebrew 47:14 gives us Mitzrayim as the Hebrew word for Egypt, but Mitzrayim uses the im suffix, denoting a plural word, or Egypts. Without the im suffix, we get Mitzra, much like the older local pronunciation of Missouri, Mizra. Southern Illinois goes by the name Little Egypt. This huge section of southern Illinois goes by the name Little Egypt. It has many place names associated with Greece, Egypt, and the Nile, such as Cairo, Thebes, Karnak, Dongola, Sparta, New Athens, Palestine, and Lebanon. Harry Hubbard videos. Harry Hubbard has made videos on Little Egypt, Illinois, Alexander the Great in Illinois, maps, falsification of history, and much more. His Alexander the Great and Alexander Helios videos show the many artifacts related to Alexander found in Burroughs Cave in southern Illinois. His video Searching for Thanksgiving shows how many of the journals of early Americans didn't get published until around 1820 in England. His video called the Lazaria Map Collection shows the oddities of maps in the Arctic, Greenland, and the missing Friesland. 2 rivers of Thebes. Euripides in the Bacchae wrote that Thebes had 2 rivers, the Dirke and the Ismenos. The name Ismenos comes from the Ismenian dragon slain by Cadmus. Dirke might come from the word for dragon or eye, which we'll see in a later quote by Pierre Sabac. Modern Thebes, or Diva, Greece, has no rivers. Greece has no rivers named Dirke or Ismenos. Sophocles in Antigone referred to the great waters of Dirke. Thebes, Illinois has the mighty Mississippi and Ohio rivers. Thebes and Sparhawk. Thebes was established in 1835. At first it was known as Sparhawk Landing. It was the county seat of Alexander County from 1846 to 1859. Sparhawk means sparrowhawk, male Eurasian sparrowhawk, and a female Eurasian sparrowhawk. And you can notice the sexual dimorphism here, which many birds of prey have, where the female has much larger size than the male. Sparrowhawk and Mabinogion. The Mabinogion consists of a collection of prose stories of Britain written in Middle Welsh around the 13th century. Quote, "In the midst of a meadow which is here, 2 forks will be set up, and upon the 2 forks a silver rod, and upon the silver rod a sparrowhawk, and for the sparrowhawk there will be a tournament. And to the tournament will go all the array thou didst see in the city, of men and of horses and of arms. And with each man will go the lady he loves best, and no man can joust for the sparrowhawk, except the lady he loves best be with him." The Mabinogion, Geraint, the son of Erbin, translated by Lady Charlotte Guest. Sparrowhawk and Knights Templar. The Sparrowhawk Tales from the Mabinogion has an occult connection to the Knights Templar, who history tells us lived at basically the same time as the Mabinogion. The Knights Templar rode double. "And with each man go the lady he loves best, and no man can joust for the sparrowhawk, except the lady he loves best be with him." Knight Templar riding double with the lady he loves best, or laddie. Cairo, Illinois lies 23 miles or 37 kilometers south of Thebes, Illinois, at the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi River. And note also that just south of Cairo lies the Kentucky town of Wycliffe, named almost for sure after John Wycliffe, the Oxford professor who history tells us wrote the first English version of the Bible, or with his companions. We'll come back to Wycliffe shortly. Cairo, Illinois. Cairo lies at the southernmost point in Illinois, at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. Minitrue tells us, quote, "The first municipal charter for Cairo and for the Bank of Cairo were issued in 1818, but without any settlement and without any depositors." Because of the old saying, if you build a map, they will come. Cairo, or Christogram, with the first 2 letters of the letters of Christ in Greek. Minitrue tells us, quote, "The Cairo symbol was used by the Roman Emperor Constantine I, 306 to 337, as part of the military standard Vexillum. Constantine's standard was known as the Labarum. Now, as people who know about the 1,000 added years of history, 306 might mean 1306. The Labarum of Constantine the Great, son of Helena the Empress, and founder of the Canonus Regular of the Holy Sepulchre of the Sepulchrine Nuns, which brings us back to Eleanor Darnell, mother of John and Daniel Carroll, to Helena, Montana, and to St. Omer College, to Teruel, Spain, the sepulchre of Abraham and Sarah at Malpica de Arba, and Barcelona, or Jerusalem, Spain, to Eleanor of Aquitaine and the Plantagenous kings. And of course the Venetians, close allies or financiers of the Plantagenous. Constantine's vision and dream. While marching with his army, Constantine had a vision of a cross above the sun, with words to the effect, "In this sign you shall conquer." The next night, Jesus appeared to Constantine in a dream and told him to use the sign against his enemies. Quote, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." End of quote. Matthew 22:39. Thebes, Cairo, and the Wycliffe Mounds. About 6 or 7 miles south of Cairo, the Kentucky State Park Services manages the Wycliffe Mounds. The site has 2 large platform mounds with 8 smaller mounds around a central plaza area. Mounds from Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Scholars have given the name mound builders to the people who built giant mounds from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Today we know almost nothing about the mound builders. They and their entire civilization vanished from the face of the earth. Archaeologists tell us the mound builders had thousands of cities, going all the way to Tennessee and from the Mississippi River, at least to Tennessee. The mound builders created the real Egyptian civilization, I believe, now erased by massive effort. Cairo, Thebes, and Cahokia. Scholars tell us that a large city once occupied the land near modern St. Louis, just north of Thebes and Cairo, and have given it the name Cahokia. Scholars have given it the name City of the Sun because the inhabitants worship the sun, just like the Egyptians. The people of Cahokia built large dirt mound structures. The largest mound, Monk's Mound, has a base about the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza and contains 22 million, quote, 22 million cubic feet of adobe carried basket by basket to the site, according to the Ministry of Truth, or Wikipedia. How did they build the mounds? Monk's Mound contains an estimated 22 million cubic feet, or 814,814 cubic yards of dirt. Two very interesting numbers. 22 for the master builder number, the perfect number for somebody who built such a thing like Monk's Mound. And 814 reduces to 13, so we get 1313, or twice the master of time twice, and add it and reduce further, it reduces to 26, the Yahweh number. Minitrue tells us people carried the dirt basket by basket to the site. A full-size American pickup truck will hold 2.5 cubic yards of dirt. That means it would take 325,925.6 full-size pickup trucks to have carried the dirt, much less piling it up into the giant Monk's Mound. How could a city with an estimated maximum number of 40,000 people have built Monk's Mound and well over 100 more, or thousands of them, throughout the Americas? Full-sized American pickup truck, Ford F-150, can hold 2.5 cubic yards of dirt, or about 500 gallons of dirt. Serpent worship throughout America. Evidence of serpent worship exists throughout North and Central America. The site moundbuilder.blogspot.com shows 30 serpent mound sites in North America, from Florida to California, north to New York and Chicago. People have worked hard to destroy evidence of the mound builders, including the Army Corps of Engineers, which has rerouted the entire Mississippi River. The Mayans have many serpent statues. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio snakes for over 1,300 feet, or over 400 meters. No one knows who built it or when. Feathered serpent from Mesoamerica. Cadmus and Harmonia. Cadmus had to serve Ares for 8 years for killing his dragon or serpent. After that term, the gods gave him Harmonia as a wife. Cadmus and Harmonia had 4 daughters, Agave, Ino, Semele, and Autonoi. We will see Semele and her sisters again in the next video. They had 2 sons, Polydorus and Illyrius. Illyrius, Illinois River. Legends tell us Illyrius founded the Illyrian people. Illyrius, or Illyrian, could break down into the first syllable of Illinois in the word rios, or riviere, or river. The Illinois River, a tributary of the Mississippi, flows through much of central Illinois before merging into the Mississippi River. And here we have the Illinois River in this map, and it merges with the Mississippi near Grafton, Illinois, just north of St. Louis. Echion, the wise Spartoi viper. Legends give the name Echion to the wisest of the Spartoi. Echion derives from the Greek word echis, meaning viper. Quote, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be you therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." Matthew 10:16, King James Version. And again, the New Testament too refers to serpents as wise. Queen Cleopatra killed herself with asps, a type of viper. Most venomous snakes in North America, such as the copperhead, belong to the pit viper family. Echion and Agave, parents of Pentheus. Echion, the wise viper, married Agave, the daughter of Cadmus and Harmonia. Agave gave birth to Pentheus. Cadmus in his old age would cede the kingship of Thebes to his grandson Pentheus. Phoenix, Cadmus, Echion, and Agave, and Pentheus. Pentheus, father of Mencius. Legends tell us Pentheus had a son, Menocius, who became the ruler of Thebes. So now we have Phoenix begat Cadmus, whose daughter married Echion, and Pentheus and Menocius. Menocius, father of Creon and Jocasta. Menocius had at least two children, Creon and Jocasta. Jocasta ruled as queen of Thebes, first with her husband Laius, and later with her son Oedipus. Jocasta represents Milca, the queen. Creon means ruler. So again, we don't get his name, but we do now have a name for Milca in Jocasta. So now we have Phoenix begetting Cadmus, Echion marrying Cadmus's daughter Agave, who begat Pentheus, who begat Menocius, who begat Creon and Jocasta. Haran and Menocius. This series of videos will identify Jocasta, the daughter of Menocius, with Milca the queen. Terra begat Haran, who begat Milca. So Menocius, the son of Pentheus and father of Creon and Jocasta, would represent Haran, and Pentheus would represent Terra. And here we have a chart. Cadmus, Echion, Pentheus meaning Terra, and Menocius meaning Haran, who begat Creon and Jocasta, or Milca, the queen. Meaning of Terra. Strong's Hebrew Concordance 8646 transliterates the name as Terach. Terra, or Terach, could mean brother of the serpent, slayer, if looked at through the eyes of Calvert Watkins in his book on comparative Indo-European poetics, How to Kill a Dragon. Watkins was a professor at Harvard for many years. How to kill a dragon. The myth of a hero killing a dragon, or more often a serpent, quote, may be quasi-universal, quote, end of quote. Calvert Watkins, How to Kill a Dragon, page 297. The dragon guards treasure, Watkins, page 300. Root word ter means slay. The root word ter and its derivatives means to cross over, pass through, overcome, vanquish. Watkins, page 342. Watkins devotes chapter 32 to the root ter and shows its use in the sense of slaying or overcoming an adversary, in particular a dragon. Hero slays serpent. Watkins says the semantic structure follows the pattern hero slays serpent, page 301. The capital is in the original. Watkins constructs the poetic formula hero, ter, adversary, page 345. Capitals in original. Terach, brother of serpent slayer. Watkins shows the root ter means slay in the sense of slay the serpent or dragon. Ach means brother in Hebrew. Strong's Hebrew Concordance 251. Terach, brother of the serpent slayer. Meaning of Pentheus. Scholars tell us Pentheus means man of sorrows and derives from the Greek word penthos, meaning sorrow or grief. Pendragon or Pendraig in Welsh means the chief dragon or head dragon. Cadmus slew the dragon. Pen plus theus means dragon god. Quote, the pen or dragon is mightier than the sword. End of quote. Hebrew, a reconstructed language. Minitrue tells us, quote, Hebrew had ceased to be an everyday spoken language somewhere between 200 and 400 CE, end of quote, which of course could mean 1200 to 1400 CE. Minitrue goes on, quote, Hebrew survived into the medieval period as the language of Jewish liturgy, rabbinic literature, inter-Jewish commerce, and poetry. Then, in the 19th century, it was revived as a spoken and literary language. People made up the pronunciation and meaning of the language in the 19th century, the century of deceit. Today, the entire country of Israel speaks a modern version of Hebrew, but nobody has any idea if they actually pronounce it the way people once pronounced Hebrew. Nahor and Echion. And Nahor lived 9 and 20 years and begot Terah. Genesis 11:24. Nahor represents Echion, the father of Pentheus. Echion means viper. Phoenix, Cadmus, Echion, meaning Nahor, and Pentheus, meaning Terra, and Menocius, Haran, who begat Creon and Jocasta or Milcah. The meaning of Nahor. Strong's Hebrew 5152 tells us Haran means snorting or breathing hard. Also the Haw Theological Word Book of the New Testament, 1346. It derives from the root nun het resh, from which the word nostril also derives. Strong's Hebrew 5170, Nahar. Nahor could relate to a snake or serpent. Nahash means serpent in Hebrew. Strong's Hebrew 5175, quote, from its hiss, end of quote, and it's spelled nun het shin. And you can see that also in Haw 1347. Spelled the same way, Nahash or Nahash can mean divination, enchantment, enchanter, learned by experience. And so the hiss and the snorting or breathing hard can relate these two together, so Nahor and the serpent. Serpent's knowledge and divination. The fall of man occurred when Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Genesis 2-3. The high priestess of the oracle at Delphi went by the name Pythia, named after the python slain by Apollo. Ophiomancy means divination by serpents, and an ophiomancer does such divination. Joseph, in Genesis 44:5 and 44:15, practiced snake divination. Strong's Hebrew 5172. Bronze or copper in the serpent. In Numbers 21, Moses makes a bronze serpent. Nekoshet means copper or bronze in Hebrew. Strong's Hebrew 5178. The very similar word Nahash means serpent. Strong's Hebrew 5174. And you can see they're very close together in Strong's because Strong's groups words by three-letter roots of the words. They derive from the same root letters, nun, het, shin. The Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, 1347 states, 37a, states, quote, the word Nahash is almost identical to the word for bronze or copper. Some scholars think the words are related because of a common color of snakes. Compare our copperhead. End of quote. Copperhead snake, a venomous pit viper found from the Atlantic coast of the U.S. to the Mississippi River and South Texas, found in Little Egypt, Illinois. Ile Royale, Michigan. Ile Royale has a vast, ancient copper mines. Some estimate ancients mined 750,000 tons of copper, and amazingly, a Jesuit named Dablon first wrote about Ile Royale and gave it the name Menon. Michigan has many Indian mounds. Archaeologists have found copper artifacts in many of the mounds in North America. Michigan relics. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, people in 17 counties of Michigan, including Wayne County, the location of Detroit, found thousands of stone and copper artifacts with art and writing on them. Minitrue tells us, quote, the Michigan relics, also known as the Scotford frauds or Soper frauds, are a series of apparently ancient artifacts that were, quote, discovered during the late 19th century and early 20th century, end of quote. The fact that Minitrue calls the tablets and other relics frauds and puts discovered in parentheses almost certainly guarantees their authenticity under the rule of reversal. Noah's flood tablet from Brigham Young University. And you can see people raising their hand in surrender from the flood, and a picture of the ark and other things, and a sun symbol, an eye in the sun symbol, and the animals coming to the ark. And for a long time, the Mormon Church had a lot of these artifacts and kept them, and then I'm not sure exactly when, and then have given them to a museum in Michigan. Elaborate tablet with cuneiform writing and other writing. And you can see it has a lot of elaborate writing on it, which, you know, maybe this farmer, Scotford, did this himself, but, you know, Scotford himself had very little education. Academic rejection. The academic world has rejected the thousands of artifacts as fraud. Academia charged farmer James Scotford, who found over 3,000 relics, with forging them. quote, a vast chasm may exist between a charge of forgery and valid proof that forgery had in fact been committed. No proof of forgery or fraudulent manufacture and sale was ever offered. End of quote. Henriette Mertz, The Mystic Symbol, page 2. Henriette Mertz found the tablets contain words and stories relating to the Old Testament, Old and New Testament, including Yahweh, Christ, and Jesus Savior. Henriette Mertz. Henriette Mertz, 1898 to 1985, a patent lawyer by trade, wrote some very interesting books. Her 1958 book, Pale Ink, discusses Chinese expeditions to the Americas long before Columbus and much more. She shows how many today called Eastern cultures have relics and comparisons, like the temples in Central America look very much like the temples in Southeast Asia. The Wine Dark Sea gives her theory of the Odyssey by Homer. Her Atlantis shows many Roman and other ancient sites and artifacts in North America. The Mystic Symbol discusses the Michigan relics and translates parts of them. Cadmus and Serug. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. Genesis 11:22. Serug means a branch or root, branch or shoot. Strong's Hebrew 8286. Serug derives from the root word sarag, meaning wreath, intertwined, which we've seen. Strong's Hebrew 8276. The lineage of Cadmus became intertwined or grafted to the lineage of Echion, a sprouted viper man grown from the dragon's teeth. So Phoenix and Cadmus meaning Serug, Echion meaning Nahor, Pentheus meaning Terra, and Monotius meaning Haran. Grafted bloodlines. Quote, evidence throughout the religious and mythological tradition established that the Elohim planted a grafted bloodline, an adjutant authorized to reign over the earth, an agreement centered upon the principles of lordship. End of quote. Holographic Culture, page 30, by Pierre Sabak. Sabak writes that the grafted bloodlines came from a merger of humans and the seraphim, or the fiery serpent-like angels or aliens, exactly like the family of Cadmus, whose daughter Agave married Echion and bore their son Pentheus, the dragon god. UN flag with the laurel wreath of the grafted serpent men encircling the plain. Ru and Phoenix. And Ru lived 230 years and begat Serug, Genesis 11:20. Ryu means dragon in Japanese. The Murder of Reality, page 456 by Pierre Sabak. I cite Pierre Sabak here because before I read it in his book, I had no idea that Ru means dragon in Japanese, but you can look that up online, and Google and everybody else will tell you that Ru means dragon in Japanese. So Phoenix equals Ru, Cadmus Serug, Echion Nahor, Pentheus Terra, Monotius Haran, who begat Jocasta or Milka. Ru, Ryu, Ra, Re, Reuben. Ru means dragon in Japanese, a cognate of Ru, a patriarch in Genesis 11. And in a future video, I'll make a video strictly of cognates between Hebrew and other languages. They just have a remarkable number of Hebrew words have the same meaning in other languages, including in a couple of very important words from Hebrew in the Hawaiian language. Ra means king in French. Re means king in Spanish. Re means king in Italian. Strong's Hebrew tells us Reuben means behold a son, from Ra to see, and Ben meaning son. Strong 7205, 7200. And 1121, I think that refers to the theological word book of the Old Testament. So Reuben, son of the dragon. J.R.R. Tolkien and the Dragon God. J.R.R. Tolkien, or John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, wrote about dragons in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and other writings. Strong's Hebrew 7476 tells us Reuel means friend of God. Strong's Hebrew 7466 defines Ru to mean friend. As we have seen, Ru means dragon and El means God. Ruel, dragon god. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, also went by the name Ruel. Friendly dragon. The serpent and eye symbolism. The serpent opens the eyes of man. Quote, and the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. Genesis 3:7. Quote, the fascination of the serpent's eye was universally believed by the ancients, insomuch that a serpent's eye became a proverb among the Greeks and Romans to denote peculiar acuteness and intentness of mind. The Worship of the Serpent, page 136, by Reverend Dean. The dragon in the eye. Quote, in summary, the definition of a god is compatible both in the Greek and Semitic languages with a dragon or seraphim, a watcher or sentinel, symbolized as a radiant being. To review the table elaborated in Hebrew, the homonym irin, the watchers or shining ones, is a modification of the noun ayin, an eye, analogous collectively to the awim, the serpents or destroyers. In the Greek language, the Semitic word irin, the watchers, is translated simply as a drakon, a dragon or sentinel, from the root derke, to see, and we saw the river Derke in Thebes, from the Bacchae, to see, terms which are cognate with drakos, an eye. Similarly, within the Gnostic tradition, the watcher is concordant with the Greek noun ophis, a serpent, an animal designated with an ops, an eye. Pierre Sabak, Holographic Culture, page 172. Today, men put on ties, a symbol of the serpent, and go to work in their office, which means serpent in Greek. Hebrew, the serpent in writing. The Bible refers to the Hebrews as the Ibri or Ivri, Strong's Concordance 5680. Hebrew tradition equates Ivrit with writing. Pierre Sabak shows the occult relationship between writing, the Ivrit, and the serpent or dragon, the murder of reality, chapter 1. Cadmus, the serpent, and writing. Greek legends tell us Cadmus, the Phoenician, introduced writing to the Greeks. Writing came after the confounding of the languages in Genesis 11:6-9. Phoenicians gives us phonetics, or the study of the sounds of speech. Control over the sounds of speech creates control over languages and people. Spelling. Thank you for watching. The next video will address Cadmus and Pentheus, Milka's great-grandfather and grandfather, and Bacchus or Dionysius, and Hermes or Mercury. It will connect them to modern states and to Freemasonry. The video after that will address the parallel stories of Oedipus, the Greek king, and Akhenaten, the Egyptian pharaoh. Permission to copy and translate. The author permits any human being to copy and rebroadcast this video in whole or in part. The author permits any human being to translate this video into any language.